Hi, Andy.
Hi,
Hi, I'm Firly. Yeah. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good as well. Thank you. I'm Firly. I'm a moderator of our discussion. I'm very grateful you can join and also share your knowledge about this theme is because this is a regular activities in our faculty, and then we am trying to reach international researcher and also Indonesians as well to give insight about Indonesia, and we are very grateful you are in here. And this is also Muria Enda, Mbak Muria Enda. I'm called it Muria Enda, Mbak Muria Enda. She is one of the committee as well of this webinar.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
Can I
Nice to
just
meet
call you
you.
Andy?
Just call me Andy.
Okay.
I heard a bit of an echo. Okay. Saya tadi tidak begitu dengar. Can you hear me?
Commute.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pak Takdir. Pak Takdir is our Dean, Andy.
Great.
Yeah.
Nice to meet
And-
you.
Okay.
Yeah, he will open our webinar, and then after that, I will letting you to speak like maybe 20 until 25 minutes, and then there is a question and answer after that.
That sounds great. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good.
Dimulai sekarang? Yeah. Okay, I will try to start our webinar informal way.
Yes.
Because I have my dean in here. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and good afternoon for everyone. And Faculty of Social and Political Sciences proudly present international webinar with the title Mediating the Pandemic, and our speakers will share about his knowledge about state and non-state tension in Jakarta related with pandemic itself. And then please introduce, my name is Firly Anissa. I'm one of the communication lecturer in Communication Studies in UMY, and my role today as a moderator. And I would like to say thank you, of course, for our speaker, Dr. Andy Fuller from Utrecht University, Netherlands, for his time to sharing and have discussion with us. And I also would like to say thank you for all participants who also attend this webinar. And then, like I mentioned before, in online room, we also have Dr. Takdir Ali Mukti as Dean of Faculty and Social Science. And then before we are going to listen speaker to share his knowledge, I would like to invite Pak Dr. Takdir Ali Mukti to open this webinar. Pak Takdir, time is yours.
Oh, it is so formal, yeah. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah, good afternoon. Peace and happiness for all participants, and especially for Dr. Andy Muller. Yeah, I hope we can meet you in Netherlands next because there is some plan to go to Europe after pandemic. We have several agenda pending because of the catastrophic situation. Okay, it is nice for me to meet you in this webinar, and I see your enthusiasm, all participants, to join this webinar to exchange maybe lesson learned, maybe new knowledge for us. Because if we talk about the Jakarta as a case study, there are many journal we can read. The newest journal come from Professor Ahmad Normandi from our campus, make such analysis on the effectiveness of the policy in Jakarta under Governor Anies Baswedan. So I believe that this discussion will take several lessons learned from Jakarta. Maybe we can apply or we can make a modification to other part of the world, and we can make more effective policy to face the pandemic. Okay, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is the most important. I would like to thank you for the honorable speaker, Dr. Andi Muller from Utrecht University. I hope your intellectual contribution to enrich our knowledge, to create maybe synthesis, and also enlarge our view to see from the other side. Secondly, to Ms. Firly Anissa, PhD, it is really our member, Dr. Muller, but it is newcomer from London. Huh? So I will give Bu Firly Anissa maybe several activities such as webinar and also green mission like this, because it is new energy for us to activate our academic event. And I would like express my appreciation to Bu Muria Enda, Dr. Muria Enda as a committee, and also Bu Yeni, Rosilawati, and the other supporting staff that support and struggle to this webinar. Okay, and finally, as the Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Science, formally, I declare that this webinar start with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for Dr. Takdir Alimuti as Dean of Faculty of Social and Political Science of University Muhammadiyah di Jakarta. Thank you also for all the participants that now is going to like more than 30 participants. I'm very happy with this number of participants. And then before I'm letting to Dr. Andi Fuller to speak, I would like to read the overview of his curriculum vitae. Dr. Andi Fuller, currently now in Asia Institute, the University of Melbourne, and then Director of Reading Sideways Press, and he has an email address on fuller.a@unimel.edu.au, and then he also has a variety of roles to develop his research practice and professional skill in as a researcher, publisher, editor, and also translator and copy editor. And then his primary research interest is the intersection of urban studies and popular culture, inclusive of expression of Islam, football fandom, and literature. And he also actively using a research methodology on drawing on anthropological approach, content analysis, and some sensory observation. Please, if you would like to know more about Dr. Andi Fuller, you can also go to ResearchGate, his ResearchGate profile, and also on website in Reading Sideways Press. And then I think this is the time for Dr. Andi Fuller to share about his knowledge about digital citizenship. That very important today is because in online situation like in pandemic, we have like many of difficulties and also obstacle to have like face-to-face and meeting on person, and then how actually online media can build the democracy, community, and also education to taking part in this important roles of online media. And for Dr. Andi Fuller, time is yours.
Selamat siang. Terima kasih untuk pengantar yang sangat sambutan yang sangat baik. Saya senang sekali bisa hadir di sini hari ini. So first of all, I would like to thank Pak Takdir for having me here as a guest today. It's a very enjoyable occasion for me to be able to speak about my research with you all. As you know, of course, I am here in the Netherlands, and I feel very far away from everyday life in Indonesia, whether in Jakarta or in Yogyakarta. And I miss the sounds, the smells, and of course the food and the conversations with people with friends and family in Indonesia. Bu Firly, thank you for your opening comments, and you're welcome as well. And of course, Bu Murnia and thank you also for your presence here today. And it's wonderful that so many students are online whom I can't see. Now, I would like to share my screen. Is my screen shared okay? Yeah. Okay. So I would like to keep this presentation fairly informal, and then what would be really great is to have some conversation afterwards and some question and answer. And firstly, I think it's a really interesting and relevant topic that has been put forward on the agenda today. And I'm hoping that my research can engage.
Sorry, Andy. Okay, can you speak loudly? It's because we can hear your clear voice. I'm sorry.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Better. Sorry. Okay, so first of all, I'll just give you a bit of a background to myself. I'm currently working on the project at Utrecht University called SACRASEC. And SACRASEC is a project which looks at how security agents, non-state actors, are increasingly becoming subject to or involved in religious identity. And so what we see is that non-state security actors are taking on a religious guise. And my objective is partly to look at the role of organizations sometimes known as vigilantes, but we feel that non-state actors is a little bit more neutral, and that the term non-state actors is a little also more plural and open, whereas the term vigilante is positioning these groups as organizations which act against the state. But what we feel is interesting in Indonesia at the moment is that these organizations shift in their relationship with the state, sometimes, oftentimes working with it and only sometimes working against it. So part of these vigilante or non-state actors is the figure of the preman. The preman is a figure who I've long been interested in through my study of literature and film. So I believe that the preman is a kind of necessary figure who has played an ongoing role in the making of social political relations throughout pre-independent and also post-independent Indonesia. Almost universally, this figure of the preman is a male, so I will always talk about him as a male. He's a kind of urban figure whose identity shifts over time. Yeah, from forgotten soldiers, outcasts of the Indonesian Revolution, as seen in the film Lewat Jam Malam, or The Curfew by the great Usmar Ismail, or a local urban thug who oversees the informal street trade. Or in the post-Suharto era, a street thug who adopts religious clothing and enforces a kind of strict moral code or religious standards of behavior. And I think the most common example that we are familiar with is the role played by Front Pembela Islam, who are now, of course, banned by the Jokowi Widodo government. So my primary interest for my site of research is generally Jakarta. Yeah, although I have done research on cities such as Yogyakarta and Surabaya. So one of my general research questions is, how does religion play a role in shaping the social and cultural life of the city? My research seeks to, in part, question the imagined secularity of the Indonesian cities, such as Jakarta. Jakarta is imagined as an icon of national identity in which university and diversity is embodied. It is the center of the national economy and the representation of the nation's development. It is also the city which serves to facilitate and enable the circulation of global capital. But the image of the city of Jakarta, for all its luxurious malls and hotels and wide avenues, is anathema to the multiple religious realities that permeate throughout the city's everyday life. Islam remains central to the making of the city's cultures, even as successive governments seek to demobilize and take away the political agency of Islam. Thirdly, my research questions are to do with how are urban cultures represented in popular culture, whether this is through cinema, literature, or increasingly through social media. These kinds of media play a strong role in shaping how we imagine urban imagery and identities. For me, they play an agentive role in shaping political identities as well as documenting engagements with urban life. Through my work, I seek to entangle the discursive and various kinds of media with ethnographic engagements of everyday life in Jakarta. Unfortunately, I have not been able to do much ethnography over the past 2 years owing to the pandemic, which I'm sure you can empathize with. So, being here in the Netherlands, I've come face to face with the problem of access. How was it possible to do field work while being based in the Netherlands and unable to get to Indonesia? Fortunately, I will be coming to Indonesia next month for a quick trip. So I've been deprived of the opportunity to do field work and this has presented numerous opportunities, of course, to do more Zoom presentations and to engage with scholars at UMY and elsewhere. But it's also been a moment where I have clearly learned of the multiple authors and the multiple contributors to the shaping of a research project. I've had to rely on my friends in Jakarta who work as journalists, photographers, and artists. So one of the questions we are also engaging is, has the pandemic enabled the re-emergence or the strengthening of the state? Some scholars are arguing that it is either the city or city governments, which is the primary shaper of everyday life. But what we've seen through the pandemic is, in my reckoning, is a strengthening of national governments and the state. Some scholars also speak of Indonesia as being a weak state, and I also take issue with the conceptualization of Indonesia as being a weak state. This no longer seems accurate. Although, so the Joko Widodo government is increasingly emboldened and strong in its policing of social and political movements. There is much surveillance of social media. Joko is shamelessly arguing for the need of staying in power for beyond his 2 terms of presidency. He has enshrined the move of the nation's capital from Jakarta to East Kalimantan. He has enforced the omnibus law, which have curtailed the rights of workers. These laws, like the plans to move the capital, have been made with minimal consultation with the public. Both have been heavily criticized in the mainstream media and have been seen as evidence of the state's turn towards a kind of authoritarianism. This is some 2 decades after the Reformasi movement. So the trajectory of Reformasi may not be necessarily viewed as having a successful and long-lasting impact. And these images here I've used to show how the pandemic has reshaped our experiences of urban life. And not only does it change the day-to-day physical reality, but it also shapes the material culture of urban life through this presence of murals and of new banners. I draw here, this image here I've used to show what kind of the various kinds of crises that have been present in the Reformasi era. First of all, Reformasi, the tsunami, the earthquake, and of course the volcanic eruption. But this crisis, in Sri Mulyani's terms, is different. And here I would like to quote her. Sri Mulyani says, krisis ini berbeda sekali karena kita harus melindungi manusia dan perekonomian sekaligus. Satu hal yang berbeda pada krisis ini adalah pembatasan sosial. Itulah salah satu shock atau kejutan besar karena tidak pernah terjadi sebelumnya. Jadi kita harus memikirkan 2-3 langkah ke depan. Moving on, I've, as part of my research and being stuck here in the Netherlands, I've been relying heavily on social media and Instagram as a means to access what is being experienced and articulated in everyday life. And one of the accounts I've been following is the account of Kiai Lutfi Hakim of the FBR, who has become very active on Instagram over the past maybe 12 months or 2 years. And what is interesting for me is that Kiai Lutfi, Imam Besar, as he calls himself, has taken on a very conciliatory and docile attitude towards the Indonesian state and Joko Widodo-led government. And here he shows himself participating in the COVID protocols. And so he is becoming an exemplary figure for how the vigilante groups or non-state actors can represent positive examples of what the state regards as being ideal practice throughout the pandemic. And for me, this is interesting because globally, we have seen a lot of vigilante groups or non-state actors be involved in protests against the government's restrictions throughout the pandemic, whether that be in the Netherlands, the US, or Australia. Moving on, I've also pointed to the multiple allegiances of the FBR. Here we see Pak Kiai Lutfi Hakim having a meal with a member of the, I'm sorry, I don't have his name, but he's a figure from the from Pembela Islam, which of course is now disbanded. And I would argue that the From Pembela Islam was disbanded owing to its overly hostile attitude to the state, and it's in part rejection or contestation of Pancasila. What we see particularly with the From Pembela Islam became too radical in its critique of the Indonesian state. And so From Pembela Islam for me is interesting owing to its ongoing ability to make itself relevant to society and to affiliate itself and incorporate itself into the state. And of course, this is troublesome or problematic for many people and sectors of society, but it shows how the Forum Betawi Rempu is also quite a smart and astute or flexible political and social organization, which adapts itself to society's changing political circumstances. And the picture also in this slide shows, which is quite a common feature of Lutfi's Instagram post, is their frequent appearance with the police. and they often also show their collaborations with the police, where the police the police will come to visit the FBR and consult with them and seek their permission, which is a kind of a mutual act of mutual respect. So I'm also trying to think about who are the FBR and how do they present themselves digitally. And so the post here, Tolak LGBT, is a very recent post, I think just posted in the last week in response to an incident in Jakarta, where the British embassy put up an LGBT flag. And so the Forum Betawi Rempuk were very quick to respond with a statement condemning the behavior of the British embassy ambassador in putting up this flag. But the Forum Betawi Rempuk are also willing to celebrate national female figures such as Hari Kartini and the like. And then we see that this literasi digital is a big agenda of the Forum Betawi Rempuk over the coming, throughout the past years, in which they have not only active on Instagram, but they're also very active on YouTube. And this is part of their agenda of menjemput takdir baru buat kaum Betawi, which is their new slogan. And I think I'm still having trouble translating this slogan, but it's something like reshaping the new direction or new fate of the people of Betawi. And my feeling is this partly relates to the change in the circumstances regarding the city of Jakarta. The Forum Betawi Rempuk are already quite, how did you say, they are anticipating changes in the city once the Ibu Kota, the capital city, moves to East Kalimantan. So they are anticipating a change in social circumstances where they might be able to reclaim certain aspects of political identity. And so these are also pictures from Imam FBR's Instagram account. And I've chosen these images because they contrast quite significantly with the image that he presents of himself as being a learned figure of Islam. Yeah, oftentimes we will see him dressed in white, at a mosque, surrounded by other religious figures. But Imam FBR loves smoking, he loves cigarettes, but he also is a connoisseur of cigars. He likes to play golf, and of course he loves to play the guitar. And apparently the current anthem of FBR is a song written by Kiai Lutfi himself. But yeah, this is the idea that's circulating on social media. So what I want to show is that he also tries to present himself as a cosmopolitan figure who is acceptable to a diverse audience, whereas FBR has its origins as ethnic religious organization, but we also see various attempts by Imam FBR to make the organization not just relevant to say the urban poor of Jakarta, the Kaum Betawi, but also like a more middle class audience, and also not specific to Muslims, and not specific, of course, to Betawi people. And of course, what I'm saying is that social media plays an important role in this, and FBR is aware of it and is using multiple channels of social media throughout the course of the pandemic to shape or reclaim their position within Indonesian society, and specifically Jakarta. Yeah. So throughout the pandemic, sorry, Bu Ferli, maybe I can speak for about 5 more minutes. Is that okay? Yeah. So basically in closing, or just to draw on a couple of other examples from my research throughout the pandemic, I've been arguing that I oftentimes see, you know, two competing tendencies within everyday Indonesian life. I see some efforts at restricting freedom of expression or democracy, and at the other time, I also see an incredibly rich variety of non-state actors which promote freedom of expression, diverse understandings of Islam, which critique the state, which represent the which advocate for the rights of minorities, whether religious or ethnic minorities. So I always find it impossible to make a really generalization about what is happening in Indonesia. And one of the online media that has come to prominence throughout the pandemic has been Project Multatuli, which was founded by Evi Mariani, who is a former Jakarta Post journalist. And their agenda is Melayani yang dipinggirkan. And I'll read you a passage from Evi Mariani regarding what Project Multatuli is. This here is an example of some of their work. Of course, it's in part urban, and it's also, you can see that they are discussing the rights of the Ahmadiyya, and they're also talking about how COVID impacts the lives of, you know, marginalized, isolated communities, and whether it be in Sumatra or in the region around East Java. So, according to Evi Mariani, Project Multatuli adalah sebuah inisiatif jurnalisme untuk melayani yang dipinggirkan demi mengawasi kekuasaan agar tidak ugal-ugalan. Kami melayani publik dengan mengangkat suara-suara yang dipinggirkan, komunitas-komunitas yang diabaikan, dan isu-isu mendasar yang disisihkan. Project Multatuli adalah jurnalisme non-profit, menyajikan laporan mendalam berbasis riset dan data dalam bahasa Indonesia dan Inggris. Kerja-kerjanya menekankan kolaborasi antar media maupun dengan berbagai organisasi yang meyakini nilai-nilai yang sama dengan kami: demokrasi, kemanusiaan, keadilan sosial, keberlanjutan bumi, dan kesetaraan hak. Here, there is another example of Evie's writing on grieving during the pandemic. Probably finally, I want to mention the lapor COVID. And here I'm referring to lapor COVID as a kind of social media which has played an incredibly vital role throughout the pandemic. I think what was definitely during the early stages of the pandemic, there was very little clear information that was being disseminated by the Indonesian government regarding the presence and the widespread of COVID throughout cities in Indonesia. And so what we saw emerge was this kind of data-driven online activism, which was basically a kind of crowd-funded media organization managed by Irma Handayani, who was able to mobilize a range of sources to compile, a broad, representation of what the scale of the pandemic was in not only Jakarta but also throughout Indonesia. So basically, that's basically what I've got to share for the moment. What I'm seeing is that there is a huge scope of non-state actors who are shaping the political, social life of everyday Indonesia. It is no longer, it is not possible for the Indonesian state to be capable of, say, presenting a uniform or singular narrative about the direction of the state. Democracy is lived every day online. Political decisions are incredibly contested. There is an incredible diversity of opinions, and moreover, people are incredibly capable of articulating their wills and demands and issues. So the Jokowi government makes unilateral decisions at its own risk of losing the trust of any number of different sectors of society. And what we see is also organizations such as Forum Betawi Rempug, which perhaps are characterized as representing only a small sector of society. We also see that they are increasingly astute at making themselves relevant to audiences beyond their initial constituency. So, yeah, I am pretty much going to finish it there. I've spoken for 30 minutes, and I really look forward to some comments and feedback and some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. A very interesting material, actually, how informal or formal organization get involved in pandemic situation, and also to get the attention, I guess, attention from the audience and also from society during pandemic itself. And actually, Andy, you can call me just Firly. Don't Bu Firly. Don't use Bu Firly, please. Okay, then. Maybe the audience or other participant would like to give a question about this material, or would like to share about the experience, or all of the, all of your in maybe insightful or opinion about this material. Actually, it's very interesting presentation.
I would love it if people share their experience of the pandemic, and if people let me know what media they used, or what media they found really useful during the pandemic. And also, I'm really curious about how people made their own resources during the pandemic. So that, what did people do when they couldn't access health services? Which sources did people rely on? Like, did people use Lapor COVID or Kawal COVID, or where do you go if the hospital cannot receive you? Yeah, those are my questions. And unfortunately, because I haven't been to Indonesia, it's been very hard to access these stories.
We face a difficult time in Indonesia for in the pandemic, for the most in 2020, 2020 and until 2021 is very difficult time for us Indonesian people to access health facilities from our government. It's because the facilities also very limited. And can I ask you something, Andy? You explained before about Forum Betawi Rembuk, how they would like to deliver their insight and also their participation in the during pandemic. And actually, with what strategy, with what strategy that they can, express their empathy or sympathy to the pandemic, to the pandemic victim of the pandemic. I mean, there is a lot of people that can access the health facilities, and also they can also reach their family when they are getting death because of the pandemic itself. I mean, is it FBR also help or facilitate people who would like to access the health facility or health health facilities?
I've for me, this question is also a little bit difficult to answer. My prior to so, like, for example, a year ago in like June, July, and August, when things were really bad in Indonesia, I was expecting that FBR, with its claims to being very engaged at the grassroots level, I was expecting to be hearing that the FBR members were very much involved in delivering basic health services throughout, urban kampung, for example. I was also expecting to hear that they would be involved in the very difficult tasks of transporting patients and people who had died, through and who could not be transported or moved throughout Jakarta with the ambulance or with the hospital facilities. Also, I was expecting to hear about FBR members involved in grave digging. I'm not sure if you are aware, but one of the very terrible signs of the scale of the pandemic was in Tempo. I would read about how the cemeteries in Jakarta had to be increased because of the sheer number of people who were dying. And these people, these workers who were having to dig the graves were working incredible hours. And not only that, but they were completely overwhelmed, and these people were isolated from their communities because they were considered to be a health risk because of their working with people who had COVID or who had died from COVID. What was very strange for me was that, I didn't really see much signs of FBR's involvement in some of these really basic labor intensive work, manual physical labor. I thought that's when FBR would actually really come to the fore. But I was asking some people, and they did not really provide me with a clear answer about what FBR was actually doing during the pandemic. But what was really strong was like what I shared with you during my presentation. The FBR was virtually an official partner of the government to advocate what the government was saying regarding prokes, protocol kesehatan. So they were a part of the political and social media campaign, but I'm not sure what they did on the ground, so to speak, like at the everyday level. I'm not sure how useful they were. But of course, during Ramadan, they're very active distributing sembako or, Again, I can't really say how useful what they do is, but they promote that image of being able to distribute money and gifts during Ramadan. But yeah, that is all what I can only find from social media. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Yeah, it's because it's related with another organization that based on religion, like NU and also Muhammadiyah taking part in the main part, I guess, in the pandemic, when pandemic it's happened. And I just wondering how FBR also would like to, grab an attention from the society or also the public with their activities. Yeah, thank you. Maybe another participant would like to give a question or opinion or share their knowledge about this. Oh, hello, Mas Jun. Thank you also join with this webinar. Maybe you have a question for Andy or my students, please. If you would like to say something to Andy or you would like to share about something. Okay, there is a Bu Muria Endah. Some alternative media, like you just mentioned, what is the connection to the pandemic? Like Project Multatuli, for example, does it come as the effect of pandemic? It's very interesting question, actually. Can you answer, Andy? Thank you.
I love that question. Is Project Multatuli coming as a effect of the pandemic? I would say yes and no. Yeah. So I'll try and, this is a new question for me, so I'll try and articulate it. For me, the skills and the resources that enabled that enabled both Project Multatuli and Lapor COVID, these were already in place before the pandemic. Yeah, so Effie and in the case of Lapor COVID, Irma, they already had the networks and the digital skill set available to them before the pandemic. Moreover, the people who are involved with the pandemic, with these online media, they are very experienced media practitioners. They're highly knowledgeable. They're very well educated. They're very mobile, and they've got strong networks in a range of organizations. So these online media, it's not easy, and it's not cheap. Yeah, it's expensive to do this to do this kind of work. And so I think if I can categorize them similarly, I think I saw that both Evie and Irma realized that this pandemic was not being adequately dealt with by the government. Yeah, and so their role became increasingly important, and because of the inability, or even worse than the inability, I would say the lack of desire to address the pandemic adequately from various sectors in Indonesian governments, people did rely on Lapor COVID and Project Multatuli more than they would in other circumstances. So I think that's what made these resources incredibly important. And so I would say it's a combination of factors, basically. But so yes, the pandemic made these resources very important because of the lack of clarity that was being put forward in other media, mainstream media. So yeah, that's my answer.
So
That,
yeah, so yeah. Do you want to say something? Yeah. Okay. So do you think that independent media also, like who raised in the pandemic, will be still available or still live until like 2 or 3 years further? I mean, like you mentioned before, like holding or raising the independent media is very expensive and very difficult. And do you think that, what about after pandemic? Do you think they are still can run their media, or it's just like a trend? It's because the pandemic time?
I think some of the social media platforms or Instagram accounts have had rather short-lived lives. Yeah, I think there was some of the crowdsourcing platforms have had short lives. So so was it Kita Bisa, for example? I was looking at these websites, and it's very unclear about who is operating them and what their current status is, and are they still channeling money or funds for COVID. So I think both Project Multatuli and Lapor COVID might not necessarily, Lapor COVID itself might not necessarily stay in its current form. But what I do imagine with Lapor COVID is that it the same people make themselves or use the skills that they developed throughout doing Lapor COVID, and make those skills available in to adapt to new circumstances where people need different kind of health infrastructure than what is currently available. So not just relying, I mean, what we have seen is that people are very smart now at clearly very smart at and used to using telemedicine or digital, digital apps for accessing health knowledge. So I presume that Lapor COVID will adapt to serve those health services. Yeah. As for Project Multatuli, yeah, I'm optimistic. I think this is a very smartly run organization, and that it will, I think what they show is that they are not interested in sensational journalism. Yeah, they are interested in slow journalism, and they represent a diverse array of interests in the social landscape of Indonesia, and they will remain relevant. So I think that they are smart enough to get around any kinds of restrictions on their freedom of speech. So yeah, but their interest, Project Multatuli has interests beyond the pandemic. So yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Wow. Okay, we have next questions come from Anissa. The name is same with me. Anissa is a communication student. She asking about how the government, maybe Indonesian government or Jakarta government, Jakarta government institution portray themselves in media, maybe during the pandemic itself. I mean, there is a lot of critics that come from public about how Indonesian government and also Jakarta government to tackle this pandemic. And Andy, can you have a specific analysis about this? Thank you.
Yeah, I only looked at the Jakarta government or Baswedan a little bit, I must admit. I didn't engage too much with their media presentation. And I think this was partly because I found it very unsatisfactory. But what we saw with Baswedan was his style of delivering news regarding the pandemic was almost globally universal, whether it be in Australia or here in the Netherlands. There was a very common way of delivering news about the pandemic, and we saw Baswedan wearing his very official uniform, which looks kind of militaristic. Yeah, he looked like some kind of military figure wearing his beige uniform, and so that was also he was positioning himself as a particular kind of authority figure. The statistics were almost unbelievable that were being shown every day in Indonesia, and Lapor COVID was able to show that the statistics that that the Jakarta city government were inaccurate. So basically, there was the Jakarta city government, I don't think was not capable of delivering on its on managing the health crisis, because Indonesia and Jakarta's health infrastructure before the pandemic was already bad, was already insufficient at dealing with people's health needs, and then the pandemic exacerbated the condition of Indonesia's health infrastructure, largely through the death of so many medical workers, doctors, nurses, everyone. Too many people were dying to provide a adequate dealing with the pandemic. And the Baswedan government, city government, and the Jokowi national government, they did not address the scale of the pandemic accurately, or in a manner which could be convincing. The people of Jakarta and throughout Indonesia could clearly see that what they were reading in the mainstream media or from the government coverage was not representative of the reality which people face day in, day out. And of course, people are smart enough to access different resources. So I would say there was a great increase in distrust in governance. And that became articulated through protests towards the end of the pandemic, or after the worst had passed. And one such expression was the riots in Jakarta regarding the omnibus law. So yeah, I would say the media, the Jakarta city government tried to follow or tried to convey a very sanitized version of what events were happening in Jakarta throughout the pandemic. And because of the superficiality of the Jakarta city government, Lapor COVID's coverage became far more reliable. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, there is a lack of communication as well, and there is a lot of hoax when in pandemic just come from to Indonesia. Yeah, maybe another question for Dr. Andi. My students. Okay, okay. I think it's because we have been like more than 1 hour, and I think many many things that you already shared to us. Can you give like closing remarks for your a presentation about how media, pandemic, and also the state, the government take the roles with the pandemic, and then in the future, how how media itself can be taking roles in another difficult or emergency situation. And I hope we will don't face a bad situation like in the past. But if there is a exit, or there is a difficult situation again, how the media and also the government and also public can be emerged to face the situation.
Yeah, I think what we've learned throughout the pandemic is that there are a tremendous number of people who have the skill sets, the capabilities of articulating what people need throughout a crisis. And we see that people from all sorts of different non-state organizations are capable of answering the people's needs. But these people are doing too much of the work of the state. Of course, I understand that there are, state and non-state partnerships, but the state in too many situations has left too much responsibility with non-state organizations, Lembaga Swadaya Masyarakat, LSM. And so people realize this, and they exhibit a great amount of agency in reshaping their own livelihood. And so the pandemic in Indonesia was both a moment for me of great despair and sadness, because like I'm sure many people, we knew of people who died throughout the pandemic, but also I was also feeling that there was a great opportunity seized by so many different people to contribute to society. But these oftentimes were contributions that should have been made by the state. Why why were everyday people having to fulfill these roles of conveying, the truth of the circumstances of the pandemic? So it was it is of course a very sad time, but also a moment of great social innovation. So I think the government is the government should be learning from what people achieved throughout the pandemic, and the government should also take notice that people cannot be fooled anymore by the half-truths which were shared during the pandemic by the government itself. So people cannot be fooled. People are smart and have great agency over their circumstances. So yeah, I put a lot of, you all know that Indonesia is a very digitalized society, huge social media uptake. So that is one of the factors which enabled the success of, say, Lapor COVID or Project Multutuli. So I hope to end on a positive note. Thank you. And I see Mas Fajar now. Thank you first, everybody, for attending, and I hope this was a good contribution to your discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Andy, for your insightful presentation. It's very, very, open our mind and also give a different perspective also how researchers see the pandemic and related with the non-state organization, how to deal with the pandemic and the public itself. And there is also Mas Jun in here. Mas Jun, you would like to say something to Andy or?
Hello, Mas Adi. Nice to meet you. Thanks for your coming and your very interesting presentation. Let's watch football again in Indonesia.
Good to see you, Mas. Good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, Andy, sorry, there is one question come from my student, and I'm sorry, it's come from direct message. I'm not read before. What I want to ask is how to make a good advertisement to attract people interest during a pandemic, and what media should be used. I mean, to handle the pandemic, what kind of advertisement that can be used by government maybe to attract people to pay attention to the pandemic.
I don't think this is my area of expertise. I don't think I can really offer a clear suggestion. I think the most important thing is to make sure that you know the audience whom you want to communicate with, and you need to speak with people and know what people are needing, and you have to convey as your idea in a truthful and balanced way. And the advertisements or encouragements of maintaining health protocols that were issued by the Indonesian government did not speak to the reality that people were facing every day. You cannot ask people to maintain social distance when people need to interact with people every day, when people need to interact with others to access health services. So Indonesia, which relies on a huge informal economy, and for people who need to work every day, every day to get an income, a cash income that day, you cannot ask them to stay at home. Di rumah aja does not work when you need to be on the streets and earning money. So you have to be accurate and balanced and engaged with your audience. So those are very general comments. I myself am not a great social media. I'm not great at social media, so I can't pass on any tips. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Andy Fuller for your time and your presentation. It's very insightful. On behalf of Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, I'm Firly Anissa. I would like to say thank you for your time, and then hopefully in the next opportunity we can get in touch again with a webinar, or maybe have a small discussion and also a research together and have a good engagement in the future as well. Okay, thank you once more for Dr. Andy Fuller from Utrecht University, Netherlands. And also I would like to say thank you for Ibu Muria Enda and Mas Jun as Head of Communication Studies of UMY. Thank you also for my student and all the participants. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And then, have a good day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Andy. See you next
Thank
time.
you, Mas Adi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.